What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're finally sitting down to talk about patch 5.3. But just in case this is an autoplay and you're like running, you're like, oh god, spoilers. Yes, we're going to talk spoilers, but we're going to give you like
nothing but spoilers.
Nothing but spoilers. We're going to give you at least like a minute or two to make sure
So
that you...
huge thanks to the members, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for hitting that member button.
Yeah.
That Dollar Game Club. You guys supporting us for 99 cents or more. We really do appreciate it.
Elle is our newest member. Just hit join, so thank you, Elle, for that. And we want to say thank you to Square Enix for making an amazing patch.
Okay, so I think it's been 40-ish seconds or so.
Yeah. So spoilers, guys. Spoilers.
Yes. You and I have both cleared the entire story to date. Basically, finished the Shadowbringers story. Wraps up with this patch, and you and I have both cleared the trial and normal and the raid. So that's where we're at. Neither of you, it's impossible to have finished the dwarves because it hasn't been long enough. We are waiting on 5.31 and 5.35. Neither of us have attempted the extreme, so we are in the exact same spot. How you feeling?
So my reactions, if you guys haven't seen, Chris and I have been doing like Witcher 3, a couple things. We've tossed those over on Game Club. Link is in the description of this video if you want to go see my raw reactions to the WTF moment, to the end of the trial. I think it's best to talk about the story as experienced. Hands down, this is the best story, probably the best Final Fantasy game. This is such an incredible moment for me as a longtime player, as somebody who has been from 1.0 to now, having come face to face with Elidibus, having had his mindset, his essence, having him taken us through the expansions in the story in our single player trial, which if you guys haven't experienced, it goes through Heaven's Word, ARR Heaven's Word, Stormblood. That was
super cool.
Shadow. Well, and kind of easy, right? Like, did you feel...
I was so disappointed in the difficulty, but one of the most emotionally rewarding solo quests I've done.
Yeah.
Because it just, even as somebody who wasn't invested in the lore of many of those expansions, it was still some of the iconic fights. And so I found myself saying, I hope we do this fight next. I hope we do this fight next. And so like that kind of roulette wheel with Elidibus was awesome.
Yes. Here's the thing that I took away from that. I didn't realize how strong we had become and how weak he actually was, right? Because we've had like all these expansions, we've been allied by all of our like friends, and we've continued to grow in strength. And to find out, at least from his character and how he presented it, his motives, why he aligned with us at some points in the story, why he didn't, why he was an adversary, and his back and forth, and his ultimate realization that he messed up. He's the reason that MXL is dead. He's the reason La Habrea is dead.
Right.
Him, La Habrea, and MXL were the three Unsundered who this has been their plan, their motion all along. And he was always this person who's like, I guess he always thought of himself as like the chess player. He's like, playing all different sides of it because he sees the big picture. He's the big picture guy. And no, he's not, because he sucks. And we beat him. We bested him, and he realized he messed up. But then he has this final plan that he's building up towards. And I thought from how he put together, for me, it tied up a lot of loose threads. It answered a lot of questions. Why was he our friend? Why is he our enemy? We don't trust him, but he's helping us out. And more so in a way that when we look at MXL, like I thought MXL was way more relatable than him because he was just this giant mystery. But then like he's now making more Warriors of Light. He's now doing all these things. Like why? What's his plan? And then it comes to realization, and that was the fact that he needed that. He needed all these Warriors of Light to have this hope, because he was going to say, there is darkness, go destroy it. And having that blind like hope and like just fervency inspired by hope to feed him to become the Warrior of Light, the original from Final Fantasy I, at least from an artistic design. Chris, what are your guesses?
Yeah, so sometimes we ask simple questions on like when you look at gameplay and you're like, how does this tie into the lore? And so like how we can understand people, how we can hear certain things, how we can see ground effects, that's all tied to the echo, right? That's your lore reason. But one of the things that isn't really well addressed throughout the expansions is why there's so little player agency in this game. Now, at a big gameplay, when you're just viewing it as a player, you have to have a lack of agency because you have to have a balanced experience for players to come in at different times and all get to the same end game. So if you want a bunch of players who are the same level, able to clear content in groups, they have to have a relatively homogenous experience to get there. And that's why the leveling experience and stuff can feel so dull in games, because you have to feed everybody the same stuff so that they get to the same point and it's balanced. But actually here, it kind of addressed it in a lore thing. It kind of says that we were just effectively warriors of light blindly following breadcrumbs left for us. So we didn't have agency because Elidibus was kind of leading us on, and we were just following the next shiny thing, because everything had been so black and white. You have to kill this, go kill this. Okay. Right. And we just did. And so I thought it was neat to kind of address, without breaking the third wall, without like a Deadpool thing, like looking into the camera and talking to you. It was kind of a nice way of like explaining that like the person controlling the Warrior of Light doesn't have 100% control. You know, when you're in cutscenes, you only have so much you can say and all of that, because it's the Warrior of Light and they're being led on this journey, just as much by free choice as they are by Elidibus. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really neat.
I also did kind of like play on that, is that as it, at least to me in a way, I would say confirmed that we are the 14th Ascian. That essentially, and they that talked about like, 100%. Hey, yeah, you go around. I thought it was nice that it wasn't like so like absolute that you are the 14th Ascian, but it was so much strongly implied that you were, just enough that it's like there's like a 1% way that you could say, yeah, maybe we're not, you know,
we're a fragment of, right? Mm-hmm. So the 14th was not an unsundered, but honestly, it seems like we were always sundered. Like I don't know how to explain that. Like we were almost sundered before the sundering, because we'd been kind of fragmented, like going around to these different worlds, more meant to be this kind of like advocate going out there and getting in like an emissary of sorts. And we were out there as this kind of AWOL member, like, you know, always voting in absentia. Like there's this big boardroom with 14 chairs and ours is always empty. And like, what are they doing? Oh, well, they're off prancing around on this, and they're off, you know, doing this culture and visiting this group of people. And
understanding, like, it's like essentially it was like, yeah, we were an emissary of all these different cultures and places. And beyond that, though, it's that one of the key powers that I guess we had, like if you were going to say each of one, everybody have some special gift, ours is essentially recruiting allies and growing stronger from that. And that's how we've ascended to just this, not just an icon slayer, an Ascian slayer, a god slayer within the game world. And I thought that was truly interesting, because I thought, like, in my mind, walking away from this story, walking away having defeated Elidibus, and now we have, I was calling him Fandango, but I cannot. Anyway, Farfanugan, with that, the new Ascians, and I thought, like, from their perspective, now you have these sundered Ascians. You still got plenty of Ascians right now that we have to deal with. But they've kind of like, hey, the big three boss guys who've been calling all the shots, kind of lording over their unsunderedness, you know, on top of all of us. Now we can kind of go,
they're so great, just because their souls aren't fragmented into a dozen pieces.
Yeah, you know, like now they are free to essentially, I think what we're about to step into is a chaotic world, is a world of just like things are going off over here, because there's the lead. I mean, I don't see Fandango. I'm going to keep calling on that.
What if the rejoining takes place in part? What if it's not all the shards coming together at once, but like, what if we're going around kind of capturing parts of ourselves, and so there's now like tiers of sunderedness? Mm-hmm. That would kind of give us the ability to justify our strength over standard Ascians, if it's like, okay, we've absorbed this many pieces of ourself.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because, like, when you bring that up, the first thing my mind jumps to is, I believe all that Zodiark needs is one more rejoining. We've already had 7 rejoinings before. Now this
Mhm.
week, like one more rejoining tips the balance and frees him so that he can then be essentially. I think obviously the Asians, with Elidibus is like, and with Emmett Selk saying, "Hey, we're going to sacrifice everybody on the source, and we're going to bring about the return of Zodiark, who will grant our wish and return all of those that we have lost, 10,000 some odd years ago." So I think there's still some sacrifice that has to be made, assuming that's what Fandango. Somebody's gonna roast me in the comments. His goal is. It sounds like that is essentially his goal. I thought. What did you think of that reveal? Because that actually made me drop a bad word on stream. It really did shock me. Link is in the description if you guys want to go see the real moment.
Which big moment?
When he revealed his face. Because it's like we haven't seen him since 4-3 when he died.
I was a little frustrated because there's a lot of like frustration with that body, but because I knew he died and he was being
possessed,
just used as a body,
mm-hmm.
It really was just like seeing the corpse of somebody you didn't like.
Yeah.
And so he's really just being used as a tool for his status.
Yeah, and his money. I was like, well, that's
so
smart.
That's perfectly reasonable. But it wouldn't matter if they shapeshifted into him or
mm-hmm.
body. Like it's just an impersonation. You're not really seeing him.
Well, the question that leads me to believe is because
I recognized his voice before they showed his face.
At the time, like here's my conspiracy theory. It's cool that you did recognize the voice. I was so confused, and then when he revealed it, I
recognized it before, so I don't know if they were changing it somehow. But this time he was talking prior to the reveal,
mm-hmm.
so I recognized
it.
Like,
oh,
like
that's
like a full minute.
Somebody was saying they recognized it off of his chin
before, like 1 to 2 minutes before.
People did call it. They're like, I think it's this guy, and I was like, I don't know, like. But then from a status perspective, but then this has got me thinking, and here we're going to kind of tip into a little spoiler or a little, speculation. He was under, like, it wasn't Xenos who was telling him to go out and become the emissary between the Empire and Doma. That was actually Elidibus in Xenos's body. I'm wondering if Elidibus puppeteered that in hopes that he would, like if he got killed, then, hey, Fandango, get in there and do your thing, because maybe that's his backup plan to a degree. He didn't seem very pleased with Elidibus at all, but I'm just kind of curious if it was like, well, all right, well, we're going to have this guy.
Go ahead. That's his job, right? It's not his name. So like, is he, so he's part of Zodiark? Like he's
what's considered the heart of Zodiark.
Okay.
So from a story-driven perspective, what this revealed to him is that he was so obsessed, so consumed by his mission, he's actually now a primal. Like, he has become and lost.
So does it weaken Zodiark that we've killed him?
That's the question that I don't have an answer to. Does Zodiark need a new living heart, and will he find somebody to promote into that status, into that seat?
Two different things. Like what we learned about Elidibus playing both sides of the fence, is that how do we not know that Zodiark is just like an additional personality that we infused in Hydaelyn, and it's just one big thing?
I think that's a question we have to go ping Ethos, or we go ping Gamerscape.
There's probably a reason.
Like,
there's probably somebody watching this and their head just exploded. But like, how come? Like we view them as being like almost in like separate metaphorical jail cells, right?
Yeah.
That can't play for different reasons. But like, how do we not know they're in the same place? And that they both just believe it's just two different approaches to the same end. And they're just meant to balance. Like Elidibus playing both sides just kind of opened it up to end a lot more poetically. I really feel like they could have ended the game at the end of 5-3.
Well,
and I don't mean Shadowbringers.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing could have ended, and it would have left just enough questions, and we could have just said, and 16 releases in November. Like,
well, and I don't think 16 is 14.2 or whatever Yoshi P's working on, but it is suspect, and this is complete speculation, but it is suspect that they didn't show it off at PlayStation thing, which was scheduled to be shown off. 16 was, Uh, but obviously 14 got delayed, and how if it was connected in some way, how like, oh no, don't show this yet. We haven't let them finish 5.3 because the big reveal, the big like what it for me, it ties into things that we've been talking about since since Stormblood. It's like I feel like they are working on something big, and then people in the comments are like, it was Shadowbringers. No, 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 no. I feel like the dev team is working on something really big. I can't shake that feeling. And this, with the line, and thus begins the final chapter of our star, only then cements that. And everybody's like, no, of course they're not going to do.
Could be.
It could be
the
like
final. Could be the final chapter of that one viewpoint's plan, right?
Well, the
So like
voice,
if Emmett Self felt like he was in
this
his
wasn't the
final...
voice of Emmett Self. This was the voice of Gratia, who was narrating the chapter to us, who was narrating essentially the story to us, and thus going into the final chapter in my mind of the star, which is essentially the world, the universe as we defined it. They don't define a star as like, hey, here's the sun. It's like, no, this is our star.
But it sounded like that story was being read from a point in time.
Okay.
It didn't sound omnipotent enough to just be free floating in space. It sounded like he was telling us a story as if all of this has already happened, which just tells me it would be the final chapter of the book at the time he's reading it to us.
Okay.
So at that time, he could be sitting in a rejoined place. He could be...
Yeah, whatever it is that a rejoining.
We could have just died, and, you know, he could be reading it to whatever follows after us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could be like there's a lot of perspectives on where that final chapter could be being read, but it sounded like we were listening to a story be read like in front of like a campfire somewhere at some point in time, at some point in space, but not that had to be the end and conclusion to an entire universe.
I still fall in the camp that we're going to see a rejoining. I still fall in the camp that there's going to be a moment in time in this game where, you know, people are like, no, they like 14 in its prime. Like 14's not in its prime. You're going to see more single player driven content brought into the core game. And then
it was a lot of single player content this time.
Well,
it was a huge patch.
Right. Oh man, it took me like 6 hours, like just to do the story, just that piece of it. And I loved every minute of it. There was tears and all that, but I'm just saying that narratively
12 hours to clear everything I've cleared so far.
12 hours. Oh, you were doing also filming different pieces of
content. And then I was starting and stopping my reaction videos as opposed to your streaming straight through. And
well, you were also at work because it's like you couldn't necessarily like take a day off.
Yeah, so I was doing it before work and after work. So like yeah, you're right. There is some loss there in like kind of getting back into it and all of that.
Now, like, you know, this is a thought that I haven't been able to shake, you know, for a couple years, and I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I still think that we'd be looking at, you know, sometime the conclusion of 6.0, like 6.3, or whatever that kind of patch cycle. So we'd still be looking several years out before essentially this kind of concludes. Now, whatever they end up doing, because like obviously anytime I talk about this, people will say, Yoshi P said there's more stories after this. Yeah, he didn't say it was in this engine.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they don't Game of Thrones it. I hope they don't say, holy crap, we're ready to go. Now we need to do the entire rejoining in one expansion.
Right.
And we need to resolve all of this other stuff in one expansion. Like, it would be nice to have an entire patch to go explore, you know, Y'shtola dying for real.
For the third time.
Dying, right? Like instead of just this weird thing where everybody has to have this poetic ending all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't enjoy the last quest of this one. The world.
Yeah?
I thought I would. I think one of the reasons I didn't enjoy it was that they didn't let us choose the order.
Oh, and that'd be an order interesting.
Because I would have chosen mine in the order of I don't care about them to I most care about them, and
it was the opposite for you.
They didn't. Well, they were just, it was all jumbled up. But I didn't. I expected it to be a real tearjerker, and it wasn't. Like, there were enough spots in there that's like, yeah, like, done. Like, after Ranji was gone, I didn't really have any attachment to the, not Alamingo, the Thancred desert area.
Mm-hmm.
That just didn't really do anything for me. It's like, yeah, they got golems, they got minecarts. Like, there was some comedic relief there, but like, you could have just given me a Hildebrand quest and I would have laughed. Like, I didn't need that zone after that. So I would have knocked that out. I find Oriange, I find him um exhausting to read because I'm not a good reader.
Yeah.
And so like I'm better than Brian, but only because he's dyslexic. Like if we take the parts of us that chose, like you are the stronger reader than me. Like what keeps me ahead of you is something you didn't choose. Like I just legitimately don't get a lot of joy out of reading. It's one of the things that keeps me not doing story in games.
True story, to jump in on that though, until I
Yeah.
was able to increase font size like in digital. So same thing with like once I was able to manage my own font size, my reading comprehension went through the roof, and it was just like, yeah. So I understand, and that's when it's funny when somebody's like, you misspelled this, or you like said that, it's like, did you get my point? Did you understand what I was getting? You did, then we're fine. Like I'm not sitting here submitting my dissertation here on a doctorate of like, how to pronounce Final Fantasy terms. I
Just
wish
sorry, Andre,
if
you
I
have to read everything
if I
twice.
find a genie, I'm going to wish for that as a skill. How do I pronounce these words in Final Fantasy? Your first wish. I want to pivot a little bit because
Okay.
overall, I think, would you say we fall in two different camps? I think that they're going to have, they're either a new Genesis moment, 14.2, or 17. I'm going to say 17 because it feels like 16 is probably going to be that single player narrative, like narrative experience that we've, pretty much come to
So you would
expect.
like them to totally rebuild the game from the ground up and possibly port our characters over either in the lore or literally through cosmetics and mounts carrying over.
Yeah, something of that nature. In some probably time of 3 years time, where they are connected, there is a one kind of login, your friends list, all that still connected. So like if I was playing in 14.2, you would say, hey, we're gonna go do this raid, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm not doing anything. Essentially, where we start to see the Square Enix kind of almost Battle.net, where you see the same kind of evolution,
Sure.
new Genesis for 11, where it's like, hey, we've got all these games to play. You're just subscribed to us, and here you go play Final Fantasy in any sandbox, any theme park that you want. That's what
Yeah,
I just can't I can't shake
fall.
it for the next like the next 10 years. Like here in about 2 years, like when we talk about 2022 to
Yeah,
2020 32, like their business model, they're not in an echo chamber. And despite for
correct.
the story being as strong as it is, here's the thing. Like if I have to say you got to go watch 6 movies of the Lord of the Rings before you can start this next saga, that's not a, I'm not getting taxed. Brian is perfectly fine with that. Brian's thinking of all the people who are like, yeah, I don't care. Like, what? Wait,
Right.
like what? And the
Right.
community is going to ostracize me if I jump into to episode 7. It's like, no thanks. And that's
Right.
that's the message we get, even with the story squish and the EXP squish. Hands down, that's still a thing. The people who are enjoying the story squish are current players. The people who are still going like, yeah, this is a lot to ask a new player, are still there, and that's the 5.3 changes aren't as impactful
Sure.
as people had hoped they'd be. And so the question is that would there be a good new story beat in the middle of it? And I think, yeah, I just think I can't shake the idea. I'm not saying I'm right,
Yeah,
but
no,
I just can't shake it.
it depends on what you're proposing. So like
Right.
new Genesis, like until we see how that lands and how that can be executed, it's just a bold idea right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like without execution, that's all it is. It's a bold idea. It sounds good.
Right.
But there's a reason each of the Diablos is separate, and there's no reason they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of me would hope that with everything we've learned about game design and with everything we've learned about what Yoshi P desires from a game, that we would instead just build another game.
Yeah, and
Right,
it could be
like
right.
Warcraft was a game before World of Warcraft. Like you could just totally change everything. So if he wants to build a Diablo style game, and they can have it in their launcher, so you can chat and you can hop over and all of that, and your cosmetics can maybe carry in some form or fashion. Like if you have this cosmetic in here, it unlocks this cosmetic in this other game.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's something I trust more, but only because I've seen it before, not because the new Genesis method can't work. I would like to see a new on ramp. I would like to see a new entry point. I think continuing to just move that goal line to where at this point we're helping them run really fast, but it's still a freaking mile. Like just I would love to see a new point where it's like, hey, like you can jump into The Witcher 3, you can just play The Witcher 3, and then if you love it so much, you can go back and play Witcher 1 and put Witcher 2. You don't have to just
Yeah,
jump
and that's
right
and
in.
that's where
So I
New
would
Game
love to
Plus and
see
all
people
these.
hop
Yeah,
into that and then go back and do New Game Plus, or go back and if they're going to keep it in the same engine, if they're going to keep it the same combat system. I just the number of times we've asked for a new class, and it's so much work now with this battle system because it's such a big thing, and everything you inject in it has to play nicely with everything else. I'm kind of more open to the idea of just hitting a hard reset where you can literally delete classes, you can add classes, we could have a different set of classes. It doesn't have
they
to
can have
be
a whole different battle
party of
system.
four. It can be a whole different battle system. There is no way to port this over to a new battle system without stepping on a lot of toes. And that's what I'm really interested with New Genesis. Like, how do they how different is it? Like when they say it's a new battle system, right? We've had all sorts of things told to us in games. Sometimes you get in there, oh, so the same battle system with new skill names. Like is it really different at its core, or is it just a different skin?
Right.
I don't see how you go further than skin deep and keep things able to be ported back and forth where you can take one character and jump back and forth.
It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of ties in, and obviously what direction they go here. You know, like I said, I don't know for sure what they're going to do. There's a couple of different options, playbooks that people have tried. 14 did it in a way with 1.0 to 2.0, but you can't go back to the inexperienced 1.0. WoW did it where they actually brought back kind of their classic version, so you could go and experience that just like it is. And there's no real connection between your characters there, and that's just the way it is. So I want to go ahead.
Their new player experience is a lot different than just a story squish.
Oh yeah, they're
the new Shadowlands thing. You're literally going to come into a new starting zone, and then you will be dumped into what is current expansion. You will then go through the new expansion, and you'll be caught up. You will skip the previous 7 or 8 or whatever it is expansions, and then if you want to go back to those, they're available to you. But it would be effectively like you come in tomorrow, you play through this starter zone, you finish on a Sastasha with a trust, and then you are immediately tossed into Shadowbringers. And at the end of Shadowbringers, you play 6.0. And then if you choose to go back and experience ARR, Heavensward, and Stormblood, that is entirely up to you.
It's interesting. Everybody's got a different kind of thing for it. So I wanted to pivot now to the raid because I honestly have to I love it, but it doesn't resonate like Crystal Tower, even the Void Ark, even Evilise. I would still, at this point, if I was going to say, if you're going to have to score all 4, I'd say Evilise, Crystal Tower, Void Ark, Nier. And I'm not talking mechanically. I'm talking lore impact wise. This exists on the first, unless there is some ultimate connection into how a rejoining comes back into our world. It feels so. What was it, Legion for WoW? That was all right, that was an alternate universe story. Blah, didn't count.
Draenor. Different timeline.
Yeah, it's like,
when
okay.
I was asking people what order do I need to play, I was leveling up another character. And I said, what order should I go play through the expansions? Because you're going to be able to play them in whatever order you want now with the character. Kind of. What order should I kind of play through the quests as I level up my alts? I'll read all the quests from an expansion, then I'll go play it on another alt and do this expansion. What order would get me the best experience? And they said, just skip Draenor. It literally, if you're just somebody trying to catch up, it will only confuse you because it's just this other thought. And then at the end, it's like, oh, none of that mattered.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. But so here, that's where I'm wondering if they'll be able to kind of pull it all together. I felt the same way about Alexander. I thought Alexander as a raid series pulled it all together in the 3rd chapter. I was like, oh, okay, yes, this is exciting. I'm liking this now. But the first 2 chapters, I was like, all right, cool fights, and that's...
So far, it's just the world's biggest crossover experience for me.
Yeah.
I think it's weird how much it's tied into the world. I wish it was more separate, not more tied.
How do you feel like it's tied in the world? I just feel like it's doesn't even have an impact on what's going on. Hey, by the way, there was the flood of light, and we're on the first one.
The dwarves are still being impacted, so you're aware of Kaluja, and so it's tied into the Kaluja lore because there's things going on at the same time. I don't know. It feels weird. It feels like this totally disjointed thing. I almost wish it was okay, we finished up Shadowbringers, and then you got all the new, like, regardless of the raid, let's
Yeah.
set the mechanical stuff to the side because we need a raid, and I've really enjoyed the fights, and the music's been incredible, and the zones
Oh
are
yeah, oh the music.
and the loot looks good. Like I love all of that.
Mhm.
But from a lore perspective of it, I feel like it's this like separate thing, like Hildebrand, where it's like, I wish I could do it all at once. Like I wish I could binge it on its own, because what happens is by the time we get the next chapter of this, the first quest is me going, wait, what? Because it's so different than everything else that I don't have any of it stored in my head. So I'm just not as connected to it. And maybe it'd be different if I played the game.
Well, I think that even having played the game, and I have to say no, I don't find that it's different having played the game and having it played it here. I think it's great. I think mechanically it's great. I like Nier. I like the fact that it's a crossover, but I think overall with the biggest impact to the game and the world and the lore, even though people have kind of said, you know, like, okay, Crystal Tower raid, that's on the side. Well, we're now in Shadowbringers. Crystal Tower was a big part of that. You know, so it's like, even if it doesn't necessarily impact the lore and the world immediately, it does feel like it sets the stage up for later. And being that, you know, even Ivalice is setting the stage up, and we've seen that brought up even in conversations and in quests within the game and within Shadowbringers, within everything right now. You know, like even with the fact that we have the Viera. So it's like, it feels like those are all more impactful. I admit this is probably just maybe a moment of the time as it is right now. Who knows, like in the next expansion, androids and bots and who know, you know, like there could be even more of that impact. So we see that residual effect, and thus my critique is nullified, because my concern is like, if it was just like, hey, that was neat, you know, and then outside of the rest of the raid series, it's like, okay, well, that was just something that happened, and then essentially we never go back to the first.
It feels more separate than the Ruby Weapon storyline, which is its own thing. I don't entirely know how those line up in like the timeline. Like I don't know where Sid is right now.
Yeah. Oh, have you done the new stuff? It's good. You should go do it, because the fight is amazing. Okay. It's not a trial fight, but it's still like,
but like, I don't know where he is. And like, so there's this moment where it's like because it wasn't like me and Alpha No or whatever are gonna go deal with some 2P stuff right now. Like I don't know. Like they could have brought Reen along with me maybe, because she's so of the first. Like I think I just don't feel, I either want more connected or less connected. I think it right now, it just sits in a place where it's this other thing I do. The fights are wonderful.
Oh yeah.
The zones are beautiful. The music is incredible.
Yes.
I just don't understand how it fits.
And maybe that's the point, you know. Maybe with Yoko Taro, like maybe that's the point, that it's just so different, you know, and all of a sudden
it wasn't so different. Like Monster Hunter World was like, oh, and then there's this other thing, and it was meant to be this other thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then like Yokai Watch is like, there's this other thing, but you have to like go kind of experience the world, and so you're kind of doing it in your world. Like it feels really immersive.
Yeah.
And so like some of these the 15 crossover event felt like just straight up fan service. Like it doesn't have to make sense. And this is like somewhere between all three of those. And I don't think I like the middle area. I think I want it to just pick a lane. And maybe you're right. Maybe it wraps up in a nice, neat little bow. And I look back at this and I'm like, you're an idiot. Just be patient. But as of now, like I'm still just confused.
Yeah.
Like I read every quest and I'm just lost.
What do you think about that trial fight?
It was fine. It was good.
I loved it. I love that there's a tank limit break, that Elidibus as the warrior light is limit breaking us. You know, like
yeah. I think I wish there was more like we had to fight a series of Warrior of Lights. Like we had to fight 4-mans.
Yeah.
Like we were almost tossed in like a PvE PvP experience. And then maybe every time we ran it, there was like different ones. So you kind of go in there and it's like, oh man, I went against the red mage one. It was so hard. Like I think I wish they'd leaned harder into us fighting Warrior of Lights. It just kind of felt like that was an ad phase. Like, yeah. And then you're going to do this thing. And like, it just felt like a missed opportunity. And I don't know that there would ever be another time that we'd fight Warrior of Lights. So I think if I was going to take on a Warrior of Light in a PvE sense, that's when would have had the chance to do it.
Yeah.
So I just wished for more, because I think it's going to be the final trial of the final boss of what will be one of the greatest expansion stories ever told. And so I just wanted it to really end on like a mind-blowing experience. And it was a good trial fight. It just didn't like blow the doors off mechanically for me.
Man, I disagree. I thought like the challenge that it presented was, especially after coming off of like kind of your stroll through history and not feeling that all that difficult, and then into this like, oh wow, okay, we gotta really pay attention. The active time event was so challenging. I had to put the controller down and use the old thumb.
We one shot it, so I didn't.
Oh, y'all one shot? Okay,
yeah,
we did not.
I went in blind with a full blind group, and we one shot.
Y'all were all blind?
All blind.
Wow, that's incredible. The name and man, all blind. Okay.
So well, maybe that's
tip of the hat to you, sir.
We went in and just cleared, and I was like, oh.
And like they knew, oh, tank limit break time, guys. Like, all right, great. Oh man, I wish I could. Do you have that recorded?
Maybe.
Yeah, if you do, like, that's definitely something like we should post up on Game Club.
I also had a really smooth raid experience.
Yeah,
we didn't wipe once.
Damn, gum, dude!
Just
like
straight through.
We were there for 2 hours. Like we were there. Like
I think we had some healer LB3s go off a few times. We'd lose most of an alliance, but yeah, smooth sailing.
Great, excellent.
So maybe that's what's jading me, is I just got incredibly lucky with
like
it wasn't me playing perfect.
You got matched with like a team that's like, well, we've seen this.
I'm like, where be sure to stack. Like I'm not, because like there's my party, and I was so like entrenched in like don't die, and then I see the thing go off, and I was like, oh, I was supposed to be over there. And there was one where like I was standing in the wrong spot, and I realized it too late. And I did that thing where it's like, no, if you're standing in the wrong spot, stand still. Because when you run across the room and you get clipped by two things, that's what kills you. You can live through one. It's not tuned that hard. But I died when I got hit by the second thing. So yeah, I died plenty, but we did not wipe.
Well, tip of the hat, man. That's awesome. See here, so far, I think if we were going to score this patch, because personally, I'm really looking forward to the 535, the Bojin Southern Front. That is content that I'm just itching to play. The overall job changes, played Warrior. I appreciate the changes they made. Feels much smoother.
Yeah, it felt great. And
all in all, like this is something that it's just like, man, I really needed this. I really needed this story. I really needed this conclusion kind of to this incredible expansion. And the setup, just for me, like if we're going into the final chapter, if they're going to sit here and say, and that's the game, guys, like, you know, boom, check out all this cool stuff we've got for you over here. Like that actually excites me more than anything else. And I know for somebody who's like new and coming into the game and the community, and they're like, what's happening? How will they do this? It's like, honestly, it's the mystery, the excitement. I don't know what's going to happen next. And that is something that I think is really refreshing. Because if we just went, we don't have FanFest this year, but if we just went and they're like, and the level cap goes to 90 and we added some dungeons, but not as many as before. And we've, there's going to be story, and it's like, okay, cool. Check. I'm ready to go. New zones. Oh no, really? Shocker.
Hey, I have a question about Gratia.
Okay.
So when we were taking back the crystals,
yes,
that was to merge a full soul and memories into an empty shell.
No.
Right, for other people. Now with Graha,
yes,
we were taking back a crystal to merge that into a timeline version of Graha who had no idea that he'd been volunteered for this.
Yes.
Nobody had any ethical concerns about that?
They did. They asked those, and they also didn't know if it was going to work, if it was going to even be accepted by his current, in time self.
Did his current in-time self get a say? Did I miss that portion?
I didn't. If they said that he had they had a conversation,
because it kind of feels like we just unilaterally decided that we're going to give this a shot, and current source Graha is just going to have to take it.
Yeah.
And if that kills him, so be it. Like, I don't know.
Thankfully, they didn't have to stick it up anybody's butt. They just had to.
We don't
right
know
next to
that.
we know that for the other ones, they just set it next to them.
But we weren't there for the procedure. Time passed.
A couple days.
We don't know that. So I don't know. I thought that going up the Crystal Tower was really emotional. I think getting up to the top and Graha turning into an ice sculpture was like a real tearjerker. I was like, I thought this was so between 5.0, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, this was the most meaningful story for me since 5.0.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But 5.0, I still rank above this, but it was also the most story we got since 5.0. Like in one patch, it was a huge.
See, I view 5.0 to 5.3 like as one, kind of thing. Where
Okay,
this is
like along your journey, how connected to this do you feel? Like you've stayed equally connected the whole way?
No, 5.2 obviously with the delay was like all right, and they planned it as like kind of a part 1, part 2. If honestly, I'm really excited for somebody who comes up, finishes 5.0, goes 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. Like it's like dot dot dot,
oh man,
boom, and it's like I right. I mean that's still like that takes that 40-hour RPG into a 60-hour, kind of boom, here's your game and story. And then I'm honestly really excited to see where 5.4 goes. Like, what's the setup? 4.4 was really when we started seeing the calling, and it was like what was happening there. And then 4.5 was really when things like blew up, and we're like, what's happening? I honestly am really excited to take it to Xenos. Like, he's just, I don't know, like, he's gonna have big shoes to fill when you talk about the 3 Ascians that we've vanquished, because those have been really the key players. Like Xenos just feels like somebody who, I don't know, he's just a guy who wants to he's just about chaos.
Yeah,
he's just about destruction.
There's something strong about him compared to an Unsundered in that Unsunders feel less volatile because they're looking at the long haul, because they've got all the time in the world. And they've had all the time in the world. And so there's like a maniacalness to somebody who needs to get it done and needs to get it done now, and would do things more. He doesn't need the same moral justification. Like an Unsundered, while they may do things that seem horrific to us, in their mind, they've rationalized all of those. I don't know that he even needs that step.
No.
I don't even know that he needs to ask the question. Like with Emmett Selk, it's like, these people need to die. Why is that okay? Okay, well, this is why they need. I'm doing them a favor. With him, he's not going to ask. There's just going to be genocide. And so I think that does kind of naturally give him a degree of interest over the 3 that we've fought. As far as just being afraid that he won't live up, like I think he can absolutely live up to their standard, only because he's so different.
Look at us.
I don't know.
Well, Bayu, thanks for hitting that follow button over on Twitch. We just got a notification. Yeah. Oh, actually, that was a subscriber here at YouTube. Never mind. So anyway, like, favorite, subscribe, share. Chris, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share? Anything we didn't talk about with the patch, or anything you're excited about for 14?
No, I mean, I'm excited to start wrapping up Ishgard stuff. I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm excited to see what Relic means this expansion, and start kind of getting. But like, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. Like, I'm excited to wrap those things up, but like Relic, we haven't even started. So like,
right.
I'm excited to be at the end of it, and like we haven't started. I'm really satisfied with how everything wrapped up. I enjoyed the dungeon. I enjoyed the trial. I enjoyed the raid. This whole patch has just ticked every box. So like, if I don't sound anything but joyful, like that is just not the case. I am thrilled with how all of this has shaped up. I think there were some spots that jerked my emotions a little more than I expected. And then there were some spots where I expected to be moved deeper, and like I was like, nah, that makes sense. And so I don't know. I hope everybody else had this expansion mean something to them in some way. It's been a long time since I felt emotionally tied into a video game like this. So I know that Yoshi P and his team wait 30 minutes into a video or whatever to see our thoughts, but huge thank you. Absolutely huge thank you as final thoughts here. Like, this is, it's been a pretty incredible ride. And like, my one regret about this patch was that because my work schedule and yours are so different, is that we couldn't share this together.
Yeah, usually we have in the past, but you've been slammed, and thankfully I was able to schedule work off.
I took a contract in February that was supposed to be over by May 1st. They said it could push back into June. The longest it's ever gone is first week of July. We have an insane amount of work due on the 28th. I'm working towards that deadline. Doesn't look like that'll be the last deadline. I'm sure this year has shifted a lot of people's livelihoods. I'm just thrilled that I'm personally very lucky and very blessed that my stress and my anxiety is because I have too much employment. Because the other direction, I don't envy that spot, and I feel for those that are going through that.
Mm-hmm. And then I think for me, final thought is, as a 10-year veteran of this game, it's been out for 10 years, and it's has definitely been worth it. You know, it's like I've continued to enjoy. I've really enjoyed getting knocking out various different jobs now, and getting closer to the end. So thank you guys for voting in the polls. We've been rocking out Dragoon Monday, Wednesday, Friday, bright and early. Pretty much until Maddie goes back to physical school. We don't know when that's going to be, but that's my schedule for streaming until that happens, just so I can get some things knocked out. It's just been an incredible journey, and it's whether it does officially come to, from a narrative perspective, an end, or it has some kind of new beginning, or there's something else that is some kind of binding agent there. This has just been amazing, and I highly recommend you check it out. If you're waited to this point in this podcast to figure out, hey, should I check out this game? Well, yes, you absolutely should. Free trial up to 60 is massive for this game, and it begs the question: do we think the game should go free?
I think all the way up to either the previous expansion or current expansion could absolutely be free, minus free companies, the market board retainers.
Yeah. Right now, like if you bought the game, you're like, hey, I'm on the free trial.
Kind of throws people, I don't know, Ishgard stuff, like anything that affects other players, like anything with a leaderboard, maybe no PvP. I don't know that matters. It's not like this game is. But like there would need to be some rules on that. But otherwise, like I kind of view it as like we pay to enjoy an expansion and have this experience, and then the devs take that money and they learn from it and they build an even better expansion for us to go into next. So when we're done with it, if somebody else wants to play with it, like that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think the game will like go free. I think we'll see a unified Square Enix subscription. I think if anything else, they would say, hey, you can be subbed to 14, or if you're subbed to Square,
sure,
then that's the way they can kind of go about justifying it. And the reason I think that's going to be what happens is right now we're seeing it with Marvel Avengers, probably going to see it with Outriders. You can go into your Square Enix account, you can start linking platforms, like everything's kind of being moved into this Square Enix account kind of thing. And I was like, oh, cool. They can start to manage friends, like the idea of unifying your contacts. So it's like, hey, I see you're playing a Square Enix game. Like that kind of unification, I think, would end up benefiting. So that if you decide, because a lot of people get frustrated because they're like, oh, they get mad that Yoshi P says go take a break. It's like, well, imagine if Yoshi P was like, yeah, go take a break. We've got all kinds of games that you can go take a break with. You know, it's like, we don't have to chase you out
of the Yokai Watch event, because that's not going on right now. That only goes on once every 4 years. Go play Outriders.
Yes, exactly.
And if you do that and you get this achievement, then you get this mount in 14.
Right. And that's something that they could do with a unified, kind of account, regardless of whatever platform and what game you're playing on.
Right. Now, I bought Diablo 3, I think, and it gave me a mount in WoW. Like Diablo 2, Diablo 3. I bought Diablo 3 and it gave me a mount in WoW. Not because I did. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's just a nice tribute.
That's just a theory, a game theory. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in and listening. Chris, you got anything you want to share before we go?
No, I'm excited to see where this goes. I think this conversation is probably the first of many, resolving this expansion. I think there's no way we could have got to it all here, even if we'd had an outline, which we did not. I have really enjoyed this expansion. The gapping in it and stuff has actually made it not feel like as a big a part of my life, but I think I was still really excited, and I really looked forward to the patch coming out. So I look forward to sharing with you guys 5.31 right around the corner, 5.35 right after that. It's exciting to have that much of it in our lives again.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, for Works a Game, my name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon.
Take care.